Wow, it is such a beautiful day outside today. You know what the best thing for me to do right now would be? For me to take a selfie and capture this beautiful moment, and also I can show everyone online so that they know that I went outside today. I'm a man. How did that? Oh, yeah. Mm, mm, mm. Now, I know I'm late to the party with this one, but I just finished watching Makoto Shinkai's Your Name, and it's not like I've never heard about the movie before, because I've had people recommending me this movie every single day for nearly a year, but I always put it on the back burner because I felt like I knew the type of experience that I was going to get when watching it, because it's basically the experience that I have when watching any Makoto Shinkai film, because I feel like they're very similar in terms of how good the stories are. I feel like they're very similar in terms of being a romance slash drama story, and then on top of that, they are all visual spectacles, which of course are all good things, but I just saved it for a rainy day that I felt like watching that sort of experience, and then I started hearing more and more about it. Like, I checked on my anime list, and it was actually the highest rated anime on the entire website there, and then on top of that I realized that this is actually the second highest grossing film in Japan, coming out directly under Spirited Away, which is actually pretty impressive. When I came into watching this movie, I really didn't know what to expect, because I think a lot of people, they told me how great the movie was, but they didn't want to spoil me to anything, and I totally do respect that, because I don't want to be spoiled, and I'm glad that you guys didn't spoil me, but I came away feeling like this is actually the embodiment of what makes anime great in the first place. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, this movie's very overrated, and I'll agree that this doesn't deserve to be the top anime of all of the other anime on some of these websites, but I do believe that this is something which is basically the culmination of many of the reasons why we do watch anime and why we love anime. If you're taken back to when you started watching anime, maybe 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, depending on your personal experience with anime, we all got into anime because it was this very strange story that didn't really make a whole lot of sense, but we didn't really think about that because our minds were fixated on the characters, and we had created this bond with the characters, and we actually were interested in what they were doing instead of what was happening in the world around them. And that's basically my experience with Your Name. The plot itself is actually very strange and doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's the characters that truly do drive the show, and I think they did an outstanding job. Now, the strange thing about Your Name, which is probably going to turn a few people away from wanting to watch this movie, is that it is actually a body swapping anime, and I don't like body swapping anime, but I was really surprised in how well they pull this one off. It's like I say, you know, just because it's an overused cliche or something like that, it doesn't mean, or maybe just because they've had so much of it in the past and it just didn't work well as a story, it doesn't mean that it's impossible for them to have a story that uses this that is actually pretty good. It's like I say with Kaiba and people who don't like protagonists who have amnesia. I don't really like it either, but Kaiba did an amazing job with that, and I feel like Your Name is along the same lines as that, as taking something that a lot of people are hesitant or reluctant to watch, including myself, and they actually pull it off and create this spectacle of an experience. So the story of Your Name primarily follows Taki, a Japanese boy who's living in the city, and every other day he's swept away to basically inhabit the body of Mitsuha, who is the girl who lives out in rural Japan, and it is vice versa because she will go and live in his body as well. Now, one of the things that I really enjoyed about this movie is the dynamic that they have about these characters switching bodies, because it's not just like, oh, this character is getting to learn what it's like to be a man, and this character is learning what it's like to be a girl, but there's also massive changes in the lifestyle differences from living in rural Japan and living in the big city. And at first, they both feel like it's actually a dream, and they just take advantage of things, and they actually develop and become more serious about the whole situation and try to make improvements in each of their lives as time goes on here. As we see that Mitsuha in the beginning, she's basically going over to Taki's body, and she is doing things like going to a restaurant. She's looking at all the food there, just amazed about how much it costs, because the prices for her of a single meal could basically pay for her food for an entire month, basically, and where she's from, so it's definitely understandable. And she just goes through, blowing through Taki's wallet, buying everything, basically, just going wild, and he doesn't like that. But then again, I can't say that he's totally innocent either, because every morning when he wakes up in her body, he's having a good old fondle on them titties over there. I mean, I can't say that I exactly blame him for that. I know it's really creepy, but I mean, if you just so happen to wake up with him, I mean, what harm does it do, really? Now, for those of you out there who are a bit skeptical about watching body-swapping anime, which I imagine would be a lot of you, including myself as well, because as I said, I'm not a big fan of this stuff either, but I want to put your worries to rest about deciding whether or not you're going to watch this movie. The whole body-swapping, going back and forth every other day and just experiencing your ordinary life with these people is not the entire movie. There's actually a clear-cut difference between the first half and the second half, and there's this smooth development in between the halves. So the first half, I really enjoyed the development of how they started to take each other's lives seriously, and how there's this bond developing between the two characters here. And it's not your traditional sort of chemistry where two characters come in contact with each other and they just get along very well and they just kick it off from there. It's actually that they are more invested in each other's lives simply because they live it and they see it through their eyes. So of course they're going to care about this other person here. So the second half of the movie is basically following, and by the way, I'm not going to spoil you, so I'm going to dance around some of these spoilers here just to not ruin that experience for you, but it's basically about Taki hunting down and trying to discover why this is happening in the first place. And this is something which I feel like is an emotional roller coaster, because there are times where I felt like this is just playing with my head. Maybe this is not even really happening to him, and other times I felt like this is real. You know, I didn't know what to think about it all, because they would give you so many twists and turns in the second half, and I feel like this story, instead of being something that is got this tight narrative structure to it, is actually something which is designed first and foremost to get you to be interested in these characters, care about their lives, and on top of that, just play with your emotions at every chance that they get. I could have sworn that I'd said this in the review, but after editing it all, apparently I didn't. But there's one thing that I wanted to add in terms of a issue that I had with a movie, which is basically whenever you have a story that has got major plot points solely reliant on the fact that you can explain it by just saying that it is magic, you usually have to take leaps of logic in order to get there. So the way that I felt about this was when you have the characters that are starting off feeling like they're in a dream, and then they develop to the point where they realize that it's real, and they start leaving notes for each other back and forth during their outer-body experiences in order to understand what happened while they were away. I have a hard time believing that none of them had the idea to write down their name, write down their address, write down their phone number, write down their location, or really anything that would allow them to be able to talk to each other. They had smartphones here, they could have put an email address or something like that, and you know, I just had a hard time believing that, and I know that would have made for a very short movie, but this is just one of the issues when you just explain things by saying it's magic. Now, as far as the ending is concerned, of course, I can't tell you whether it was tragic or heartwarming or bittersweet or anything, because that could be considered a spoiler, but I will say that it creates this impacting experience, and it will just play with your emotions there, and they basically tie everything up in the end. And I know I say sometimes that the story doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It technically does, because they have explained a lot of how things happen, but at the same time, because this is a movie, they don't have enough time to go into all of the fine details about it. But the way that I see it is, yeah, the story doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but at the same time, it's not the focus of it all. The focus is the characters and not so much the background of why things are happening. It's just there to understand that they are happening and seeing how the characters deal with that. Now, in terms of its art and animation, honestly, do I even need to talk about this? This is a Makoto Shinkai movie, and I don't know what they do with these, but it's like they take a unicorn and like just shove it into a food processor, and they just sprinkle out magic onto the paper, because that is just how beautiful these movies look. But actually, I found this one to be the most beautiful out of everything that's got his name attached to it, simply simply because there is a large variety of what you're seeing here. We go back and forth. One day we are seeing the characters in the city and we're looking at all the big buildings and all the bright lights and everything, and then the next day we're back in rural Japan and we've got these little shacks in the middle of the woods and these small little villages and things like that. And I really enjoyed the variety of the backgrounds that we see here. Of course, the character designs were also on point as well, and I think they did a much better job in terms of the character designs in this movie than they did in some of the other movies, which were never bad, but I just think that they are improving over time, which is definitely a good thing. I can't wait to see the next one. Now, as far as my overall thoughts and recommendations are concerned, it's a must-watch. You should check it out, even if you're not a big fan of any sort of school anime or body swapping or anything like that. I think that this is totally worth the watch because I think this is a great example of how anime has a potential to create this story that is totally off the wall and unbelievable, but still tie you down and get you invested in the characters and really interested in what's happening with it, and then they take you on this emotional train ride despite the fact that the story has such a very strange premise. So if you've seen Your Name, let me know your thoughts about it in the comments section below. If you enjoy the video, be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all my latest anime reviews of both movies and series alike. Of course, I do list videos, discussion videos, and also all of the latest and greatest anime news as well. And also, if you'd like to support the channel, check out the Patreon linked in the description section below, as well as the end of the video, where we have all sorts of bonuses where we have weekly Discord chats, chances to vote on anime that I review for the month, we watch movies together, all sorts of fun stuff over there. Check it out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.